All right. All right. All right. Now, I am entirely biased, but I will never get tired of that theme song because I love that theme song. I feel like myself when that theme song comes on, but that is beside the point. Making sure my volume's on. Um, so, surprise live stream. I was not planning on live streaming tonight at all, but I just had a conversation with somebody, a guest on a future episode of a podcast, and we were talking about deconstruction. And I was thinking to myself about how there's no one video where if I knew somebody who was deconstructing from their faith, what link would I send them? What video would I send them as like oh, here's a guide, here's a how to, here's what to expect, here's some things to keep in mind, here's what's normal. And then I thought, why don't I try my best to make a video like that? Kind of including all the details and things that I've learned from people over the course of making my podcast and deconstructing myself and having a lot of friends now in the deconstruction space, in the YouTube atheism space. So that's going to be what this is. It's entirely off script. I think I jotted down a couple of notes that I might bounce off of during this conversation, but please, if you're watching the live stream version of this, feel free to post questions or comments or disagree or things that you would like to see addressed during this live stream, and I'll do my best. But yeah, I basically just wanted to combine everything that I personally know and have experienced about deconstruction into one place so that hopefully in the future, if you know people who are deconstructing or who are thinking about deconstructing or who have questions, or maybe that's you, maybe you're the one typing into YouTube deconstruction or leaving my faith or leaving the church or whatever, this will be a good resource for you to come and learn some things and hear some things and hopefully relate to some things. So that being said, I'm just going to dive right in. The first thing that I wish more people knew about deconstruction is that deconstruction does not mean that you have to be headed in a particular direction or towards a label or towards a name of any kind. It's a very common misconception that in order to deconstruct, you need to be deconstructing into atheism or agnosticism, and that could not be further from the truth. Deconstructing just means that you are questioning your current status. You're questioning what you're being told right now in this life, and you are moving away from the way things have always been for you. You're moving away from, usually the term is used in church, so maybe you grew up Baptist, maybe you grew up Pentecostal, maybe you grew up Catholic, and you don't know. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what this is all for. You don't know why you have so many questions or where these questions first came from, but they're there and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's okay. That is perfectly okay. When I first started deconstructing, one, there wasn't a word for it at the time that I knew of. I didn't know there was a title like deconstructing that I could use. And two, it took me so long to get to where I am today because I thought that in order to deconstruct, I had to be a militant atheist. I thought in order to deconstruct correctly, I had to be comfortable with the A word, with coming out and saying that I'm an atheist. And I wasn't ready to do those things at all. And so I stayed in my, for lack of a better term, closet of atheism because I didn't think that I was ready for that title. I didn't think that I was ready for the weight and the heaviness that comes with the term atheism. Could not be further from the truth. You can question your faith and you can want to move on to something different, even if you have no idea where you're going or what you're doing. Even if you feel like you were dropped in the woods without a map, that is perfectly okay. Your thoughts and your feelings related to the current state that you're living in or the current church that you're going to or the current belief system that you know that you're supposed to have that is not working for you is perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. You don't have to say you're an atheist. You don't have to say you're agnostic. You don't have to have a label at all. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're watching this or if you're listening to this and you're one of those people who are just trying to figure out what to do next, and all you know is that what you've been told up until this point, or what you've been told that you believe up until this point, is not working for you, that's all you need to know in order to deconstruct. That's all the information you have to have, is that whatever you're doing right now is not working for you. You don't think you believe it. Maybe you know for sure you don't believe it right now. That's perfectly okay. Welcome. Welcome to Deconstruction. We're happy to have you. No matter who you are or what you're feeling or what you're thinking or doing, you are welcome here. We're glad to have you. Some people deconstruct from one form of religion to another form of religion. Some people deconstruct from staunch evangelical to a lesser type of Christian, right? A less intense type of Christianity. Normally, in my experience, it doesn't stop there, but it's allowed to. Because most of the time, once you've opened that can of worms, once you've opened that door to, I'm just going to start asking questions and exploring, it's really hard to close that door. But case in point, I said all that to say, just because you're deconstructing doesn't mean you're becoming an atheist. What's up, Brian? Hey, Crystal, thanks for doing the Lord's work. Thanks for doing such a great job in the comments, posting links to all the socials and stuff. Couldn't do it without either one of you guys supporting. Appreciate you. So that's the first thing. Second thing, you don't have to come out at all. You don't have to tell your family. You don't have to tell your friends. You don't have to tell anybody. You can keep it as secret as you want. You don't have to. A lot of people think because so much of the content related to deconstruction and atheism and agnosticism is like angry this, angry that. We're going to debate. We're going to do all these things. We're going to have these conversations where everything's just real aggressive and intentional. That doesn't have to be your experience. Those just happen to be people who are willing to do those things. I say that being on a call-in show. I'm on Talk Heathen at least once a month, talking to people, debating with them, having conversations live on the air. You don't have to do that. You don't have to come out at all. If you're sitting either in church or at home or in the car or in traffic or at work, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm really confused. I don't think that everything I've been taught my entire life is true. Maybe you even know that. Maybe you're like, I'm really comfortable in thinking that this is all BS and it's not true, but I don't know what's next. You don't have to tell anyone. You can keep that as private as you want. It is nobody's business how you feel, what you're thinking, what you're questioning. You don't have to be prepared to answer questions. You don't have to be ready for a debate. It's totally fine. And for anybody who's been on my channel before, I don't shut the fuck up about how I'm a debate coach, how I teach people to debate. And that's coming from me. You don't have to debate anybody. You don't have to be ready. You can say, I am deconstructing without having any other information. Where are you going? I don't know. What are you going to call yourself? I don't know. Are you religious anymore? I have no idea. Are you spiritual? No clue, right? Don't tell anyone. You don't have to tell anybody, especially if you don't even know where you're going. There's this idea that whenever you make a big change in your life, you have to come out. You have to be honest. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're welcome to, but nobody is owed answers to your personal business. Nobody. Nobody is owed. Why'd you stop coming to church? Why do you not volunteer with the church anymore? Why don't you post Bible verses on Facebook anymore? Why don't you hang out with the same group that you used to hang out with after church? Nobody is owed those answers. And I would even wager they shouldn't be asking those questions to begin with. Mind your business, right? You're fine. You don't have to know anything or do anything. Also, say you're deconstructing and you're like, I probably am an atheist, right? Maybe you're that far, because deconstruction is such a vast array. And in my opinion, as somebody who feels fully comfortable in her entire brand as an atheist, I don't think deconstruction is ever done. I don't think so. I don't think you're ever done learning and growing and changing and deconstructing. Um, Deconstructing implies that obviously you're taking something apart, right? You're pulling the pieces out. But I think there needs to be more of a conversation around the word in terms of how that doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing or a bad thing, right? You're allowed to take down the house and do whatever you want with the pieces. You can do whatever you want. Maybe you build another house, just a different one. Maybe you build the exact same house. Doubtful, but maybe you do, right? Maybe you build a garden. Maybe you build something totally different. That's your business. You're allowed to do whatever you want with those pieces. And I happen to enjoy doing something different with those pieces all the time. I feel like I'm learning and growing constantly. I feel incredibly solid in the idea that I am an atheist for the rest of my life. Like, I never say never, but I'm pretty darn sure. Been wrong before. I know, shocking, right? I seem like somebody who's just correct constantly, and I like to think I am. But I don't think you're ever done. I think you can learn and you can grow and you can change constantly throughout the rest of your life. Sly Diggity Dog says, I'm one of the lucky ones. I never constructed. God never made sense to me. Right. It's hard to deconstruct when you never constructed. Sly Diggity Dog. Good point. But I say all that to say, you're allowed to take as much time as you want to decide where you're going. Nobody is sitting here going, it's been 6 months, so what are you doing? Now, maybe you wanna check in. Maybe every once in a while you wanna just kind of track where you're headed, you know? "Oh, it's been a month. How do I feel? Do I feel any more whole? Do I feel like I've discovered any answers? What websites or YouTube channels have I been listening to? Anything? You don't have to." Another common misconception is that if you're deconstructing into atheism, you have to, like, dive into atheist YouTube, which again, I am here. I am part of the atheist YouTube, but you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to spend the next week and a half like binge watching call-in shows or podcasts or whatever. I will say, I will say, the deconstruction scene here on YouTube has been one of the coolest communities I've ever gotten to be a part of. Some of my best friends that I have in life, I met through atheist and agnostic YouTube, through podcasts, through channels. So if you're looking for a network, highly recommend joining the club. But you don't have to be visible. You don't have to be active. You don't have to be commenting and creating yourself. If you're just here to lurk, that's perfectly fine. I was here to lurk for years because, again, I thought that there was a certain way that I had to be in order to be good enough or deconstructed enough or atheist enough. And that could not be further from the truth. Crystal says, if you want to hold a belief, you should try to falsify it at every turn, in my opinion. How else would you know if you don't question? Exactly. Crystal, and I promise you, I did not give Crystal my notes beforehand because I didn't have notes beforehand because I wasn't planning on doing this live stream. But that was going to be the next direction I was about to take this conversation is this one-sided conversation in. If you are being told by anyone in your life not to look into something, not to look something up, not to look to research certain things, that's the thing you should be looking into. That's the thing you should be researching, right? If somebody says, oh, like, don't look at all that atheist stuff, don't look at that agnostic stuff, look at it. Look at it. Because one, why would anybody discourage somebody they care about from learning anything unless they benefit from you not learning that thing, right? Somebody who tells you to avoid looking into something is telling you, I don't trust you enough to take care of yourself. I don't trust you enough with your own future, with your own path, with your own whatever. And why does that person get to decide for you how you feel? Yeah, investigative millennial. My friend Eric. Everybody go check out his channel. He says, I lurked for many years on YouTube before being comfortable. Either way, it can be beneficial. Exactly. Absolutely. Um, uh, shameless plug. We did what I think, in my biased opinion, was a really cool interview that I definitely recommend going to check out on Eric's channel, on the investigative millennials channel. So shout out to Eric. But um, if anyone is telling you at any point, not just with faith, I'm talking about with politics, with general knowledge, with religion, with medicine, if anyone is telling you not to look into something, that is bad advice. And I would wager it's not a great person either. One of my favorite things to do, especially on like Reddit, where you get unabashed access to forums that you didn't even know existed half the time. But I like to go and I like to sub to Reddits that are the complete opposite of everything that I believe and everything that I hold dear. I don't comment, I just lurk, but I'm on red pill subs, I'm on Christian subs, I'm on the red pill women sub. I'm on all that anything that is just blatantly the complete opposite of what I hold to be my values and beliefs as a person. I subscribe to those because I want to know what they're talking about. I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what they're agreeing to. I want to know what they're disavowing. How are you supposed to know that you don't belong somewhere if you refuse to look into it? Much like Crystal said, how are you supposed to know anything about anything if you've been told not to look into it? If anything, if someone is genuine, they should be encouraging you to look into these things, even if it's just from the perspective of, hey, that's some crazy shit, right? Like, look at this crazy shit. I do that all the time with subs. I'm like, here's a link, friend, to a post. This is the craziest shit I've ever seen. Instead of, don't look, you won't like it. Don't look, don't read it, you won't like it. Where I do draw the line, I will say this, is I don't do anything monetized. So if somebody has like a monetized YouTube channel, I don't subscribe to their channel, obviously. I will watch their stuff from someone else. Like I'll watch clips of their YouTube channel on TikTok or something. I don't get people money that I don't agree with. So that's the one caveat there that I'll say. I don't want to fund anything. I don't buy books from people that I disagree with. I'll buy the used book from, whatever used book website you want to use or Amazon, on the used features, but I don't get them money. Brian says, someone on Reddit once asked me, who are you to question God? I asked in return, how did someone convince you to stop questioning? That is a great question. Anytime someone tells you not to look into something, look into it. Look into it. Even if at the end you're like, wow, I wish I hadn't looked into that. At least now you know why. Never take someone else's word for what you should be looking into. Another caveat, don't go to jail looking up weird shit. Don't go to, like, you and I know what I'm talking about. I don't want to get demonetized. You know what I'm talking. Like, don't look up illegal stuff. That's all. I'm just going to put that there. Don't look at things that if you have them on your computer, you're going to jail. That's the only caveat I have. The government is the only person who can tell you what you shouldn't look into. And not even because they're right about everything, just because they'll put you in jail. And the thing I'm talking about, they're right about that. Don't look at that. But I just want to make sure I put that out there in case someone's like, well, I looked at CP because Sydney told me to look at, just don't do it. But be wary of anybody who discourages curiosity from you. We are DNA says, I'd rather have a question that cannot be answered than an answer that cannot be questioned. Bam! Yeah. Hitting us with the mic drops, We Are DNA, 100%. Worst case scenario, you don't agree with what you looked up, but at least now you know why. At least now you're like, I don't like liberal ideology because of this. I don't like atheist ideology because of that. At least now you have an answer. But what's more likely to happen is you're going to go, huh, I never thought about it that way. I never considered that. I didn't know that. And you might discover things about yourself that you had no idea. I talk about it all the time, but I'm going to talk about it again. I was on the debate team when I was in college, and that's how I got started being involved in debate. And one of the most valuable experiences I've ever had in my entire life is the type of debate that I was in. It's called IPDA, International Public Debate Association. What they would do is you would random draw the topic, and you would random draw what side you were on the topic. So your opponent would obviously be from a different debate team, but you didn't get to pick what side of the argument you were going to be on. And you both had to, what we call scratch, which is narrow down from 5 the topic that you were going to talk about. And then you had 30 to 45 minutes to prepare for that presentation. And one of the most important things that ever happened to me was being forced to research sides that I didn't agree with, or so I thought. That's the important part, or so I thought. I remember I would get topics and I'd be like, oh, how am I even going to argue against this? Because I'm all about whatever the thing I'm supposed to be arguing against. Ugh, right? But then as you start researching, you go, wait a second. I didn't know this part. I didn't know that part. I didn't know this was involved. I didn't know that. And by golly, the number of things I learned about myself by preparing what I thought was the opposite of what I believed, priceless. Priceless. I learned that so many of the identities that I held, whether it was politically, whether it was socially, whether it was religiously, I had just been told, basically. I had just been told that's who I was. And I hadn't questioned it. Because when everyone around you is the same way, whether they go to the same church or the same school or they're on the same teams or whatever, why would you question what you think? When it's popular, it's fine. It's perfectly acceptable wherever you are to do or think or believe these things. But wow, when I was forced to research the other side, and I learned that not only did I not know myself as well as I thought, but I was being intentionally misinformed about so many things because it didn't fit whatever status quo I was living by. Alarming. Alarming. When I learned what Democrats actually think and believe, when I learned what an actual liberal was, my brain just about blew out the back of my skull, for lack of a better term. There probably is a much better term. I'm sorry. That was real graphic. Shouldn't have said that. But anyway, you get my, like, because I had just taken people's word. I just taken people's word. When elections would come up and everybody was like, well, luckily, we're voting Republican, because we just are. I was like, yeah, sure we are. But then when I started actually being forced to look into policies, rules, laws, how the government works, what certain groups with certain labels actually do and think and believe, I was shocked and surprised first. I was like, oh, this actually sounds kind of reasonable for the most part. Don't get started on the whole, well, every group has the bad and the good and the far and the extreme. Yeah. Yeah, I know. But when you're told that that's the only one, and then you learn that it's like a whole spectrum, there's like entire groups out there. When I learned that half the things I was scared of weren't even true, shocking, shocking, right? And to kind of loop this back into deconstruction, I want you to keep that in mind as you deconstruct into whatever, right? Whatever you're doing, why you're doing it. You don't even have to know why. But keep in mind that a lot of the things you're scared of, and a lot of the things you've been told, and a lot of the things you've lived by with your full chest are not accurate. They're not accurate. Or maybe they're 80% inaccurate. Or maybe like a couple of the buzzwords are accurate, but there's like a whole underlying nuance there involved with getting the information correct. Keep that in mind. Stereotypes aren't always true, right? Stereotypes are often weaponized against people and the people that they apply to. Oh yeah, confirmation bias is an MF. Yep, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And Brian asks, how clearly do you remember your old stances? Did they kind of fade away? Brian, I remember them so clearly. One, because social media. I have Time Hop, the app that shows you what you were doing on this day every year, specifically to delete old shit that I used to post on the internet. It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing, the things that I used to say with my whole chest, with my whole identity, with the whole internet knowing about it. It was awful because it was ignorant and it was uninformed and it was incorrect for the most part. But the reason now at this age, I'm almost 33, the reason at this age that I am so careful, I said I never say never earlier, that I'm so careful to talk in absolutes about anything is because people who are intelligent and people who are smart and people who are informed recognize that there is so much that they don't know, that there's so much that they need to learn, that there's so much information out there that they don't have. And they know that they're never going to be the smartest person in the room, hopefully, because otherwise you need to get in a different room. People who are ignorant and uninformed and under researched, I guess, those are the ones who loud and proud and just they're out here with statements. They're the ones posting that dumb shit where it's like a half cropped meme and then it ends with facts and like the clapping emoji. You know how like you can tell someone's an idiot because they post so much of that stuff? That was me. That was me. I was the person that was like, here's a statement. Here's my statement. Don't at me. Why are you allowed to say shit like that and then not have to answer for it? That's ignorant. At least now at this age, I expect to be questioned. I expect to have to answer the things that I say. If I make a statement, if I represent something or I claim something as one of my taglines, at least I'm willing to have conversations about it and to explain myself. And I think people have a right to question me about any of it. And my mind often changes a lot. I still learn something new every day. Not a week goes by that I don't go, oh shit, really? I had no idea. My bad. My bad. Right? Now, there are a few things that I'm like, no, I know I'm right about that. I'm not going to say what they are. But there's a few things where I'm like, I'm real secure in this knowledge. But I learn something new every day. Even if the new thing I learn is just another reason why I still believe what I believe. It's one more justification, one more thing that I've discovered that makes me go, oh, glad I was on the right side. One more reason to be confident in what I think and what I feel, right? But as embarrassing as it is to look back on those old posts, and as embarrassing as it is to be like, man, I said that, right? And then you do the whole, if that's what I remember saying, I don't even want to think about what people remember me saying that I've just blocked out of my mind, right? That I've just blanked out of my brain for maybe trauma, I don't know. Um but also there's such a wonderful feeling, in my opinion, about no longer relating to that person and no longer being that person. I feel like I am such a different person that some memories, when I look back on them, doesn't even feel like it was me. It truly feels like it happened to a different person. If I hadn't been there myself, I wouldn't think I was the same person. I say all the time, college me would hate current me, but man, current me is my favorite. Current me is my favorite version of myself. Am I the smartest person in every room? No. And I hope I'm never the smartest person in every room because then you stop learning stuff. Do I still pull shit out of my ass sometimes and say things that are incorrect? Yes. I don't mean to. I don't do it on purpose. I don't do it for the sake of like, this is me being like, take my opinion in your face. I don't do that stuff. I don't know if it's because I'm old or if it's because I'm tired. I don't know, but I don't like doing that stuff anymore. Um, but when I'm wrong, I admit it. And that's not easy. It has taken years to get there, but I'm no longer afraid of being wrong. And I'm wrong all the time. And it makes learning a real joy. I had opinions and behaviors and thoughts and decisions that I made back in the day that there is no justification. There's no justification. And I'm waiting for the day that somebody's like, hey, internet, Sydney did this thing or said this thing when she was younger, which is why I talk about it all the time ad nauseum, because I did. And I did it in a time where there's probably videos and screenshots and posts. And even if I go on Time Hop and I delete that stuff, the internet's forever. But I think the worst part about it is that I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. I genuinely thought I was a good person. I genuinely thought that I was right. I didn't think I was being controversial in any way, unless it was, like stick it to the libs, kind of like I'm gonna say what I have to say. I think that's the worst part, because it's one thing to like be a bully when you're young and be like, I was a bully, I was being mean to be mean. You can excuse bullying in a million ways. You can say like, I was insecure, I was this, I was that, I didn't like myself, or I had a bad home life and that's why I was a bully. And maybe all those things are true. But when you genuinely think that you are being a good person and that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that other people who don't like it are just living wrong. And when you're rewarded for those actions and behaviors, rewarded by the people around you so that you keep doing them. Awful. Awful. But I'm also so glad for those experiences, because I feel like that has given me the tolerance and the, for lack of a better word, the kindness towards people who are currently like I used to be, because I get it. because I remember what it was like to be so confident and to be propped up by everyone around me and rewarded by everyone around me and to feel like I was really doing something. I was really making a difference. I was really standing for something. I remember that. It didn't come from a place of like I didn't think it came from a place of ignorance. Now, obviously, in hindsight, yeah, yeah, because I was also the same girl that, like, I would make, like, a political stance, and if you were like, "Why?" I'd be like, "Well, I don't have time to explain it to you. You should research it yourself." When really I just didn't know. I had just been fed what I needed to say on the script for so long that, like, nobody prepared me for, like, when people had nice questions, you know? They always prepare you for when people wanna fight with you about it, but they never prepare you for when people go, "Why?" I'm just curious, where'd you get that information from? They never prepare you for that. That, like, stops you in your tracks. They prepare you for the combative people and the argumentative people. Um, but I said all that to say, you can absolutely be embarrassed by who you used to be, but don't hide who you used to be. Don't forget who you used to be. Use that as a litmus test for how far you've come. Some of my favorite atheist and agnostic content creators still to date will talk about how guilty they feel about the proselytizing they used to do and the preaching they used to do and the number of people that they got involved in their religion that they now don't believe in at all and they don't relate to at all, or the club or the party, the political party they were a part of. Even now, they feel so much guilt that it a lot of times propels people to do things like start a channel, start a blog, start a TikTok account, because they feel indebted to undoing the damage that they did back when they had those thoughts and opinions. And while I don't think necessarily that I will ever be able to, for, quote unquote, undo damage that I did back then, I can stop ever doing it again. Um, and I can do my best to spend more time perpetuating what's true and what's real and what's accurate and what's backed by science and by facts and by research. So maybe let's say I spent, because I did, let's say I spent 24 years touting faith, Christianity, the Bible, right wing stuff, right? Conservative, more conservative leaning stuff that I don't agree with anymore. I want to spend twice that getting the real information out there that I actually believe. Not because I feel like I owe anybody, not because I feel like I need to pay penance for anything, not because I feel like I get any points in the martyr department, um, because I just feel like I should. I just feel like I need to do that. There are things in my life that I feel drawn to do. I don't want you to do it out of guilt. I don't want you to do it out of self-loathing. Those are never healthy thoughts to have about yourself. And if you have those thoughts about yourself, I highly encourage you to seek counseling or therapy or a group of some kind, or um, a community of some kind, even if it's just reaching out to people that you see in the comments of a lot of these videos as you start to join maybe atheist and agnostic YouTube, things like that. Maybe you see people active on Facebook who are also on these channels. Use who you used to be as a litmus test for who you don't want to be anymore. And remember how you feel about perpetuating untrue, misinformed, um, controversial stuff. Just remember that feeling and take that with you into the future, because it will guarantee that you make sure from now on you know what you're talking about to the best of your ability. And then you learn so much. One of my favorite things is learning. People are like, well, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? Then you're wrong. And then find out why. Right? And then you learn something. And then you grow a little bit. And then you get another wrinkle in your brain or something. Is that even true? I shouldn't even say that. I haven't even Googled if that's true, if you get more wrinkles in your brain. I'm going to write that down so I can Google it. Now let's talk about the next steps. So maybe you're one step further. Maybe you've been deconstructing for a minute, whether that's a year, whether that's, hold on, let me respond to this text so somebody doesn't think I died. There you go. Somebody was like, are you alive? Because they called me. So maybe you're beyond that. Maybe you're at the next step. Maybe you know that you are deconstructing. You've stopped going to, say, church or temple or wherever it is you're going that you're like, you know what, this is no longer my thing. Maybe you even are to the point where you're using one of the A words. Maybe you're atheist. Maybe you're agnostic. Maybe you're non-religious. Lots of people go by spiritual but non-religious. Now you're mad. You are mad. You're mad because you feel like everyone in your life has been lying to you. You are angry. You are resentful, right? You've come here today on YouTube because you want to watch that shit where they just tear people's arguments apart, right? Because you're mad. Because you think everyone lied to me. Everyone who I was supposed to love or respect or look up to or want to be like lied to me. You might even feel like they were laughing at you. You might even feel like you got punked. You might feel like, is this like the Truman Show? Were they just sitting around wondering how much I was going to believe? Were they just feeding me more and more ridiculous bullshit just to see if I would believe them? And that's okay. We've all been there. Crystal, one of my favorite people on the internet, still says, I'm still a little mad, not gonna lie. That's okay. It's okay to be mad, dude. Be mad. Sit in the mad, right? Sit in it. Let yourself feel it, right? I think one of the worst things people do, Brian says, I'm getting madder listening to this. It's probably the sound of my voice, Brian. It's probably not even what I'm saying. I have an awful voice and I apologize. One of the worst things people do to themselves is when they're feeling like a feeling, they push it away. They're like, I don't want to get mad right now. I don't want to get mad. I don't want to get mad. I don't want to ruin my day. Get mad. Get mad. But use that mad. Think about or write down or type in a notepad on your phone. What was it that pissed you off? What made you mad? What reminded you of something or made you think of something, or who? Maybe it's a person. Who made you think about something and made you mad? Maybe you heard something on the radio. Maybe you drove by a church. Maybe you ran into somebody you haven't seen since back in the day and they're still heavily involved in the ministry or whatever. What made you mad? Maybe you visited family and they started talking about like faith and church and God, and you're just like, pay attention to that. Why are you mad? There's no wrong answer to that question. Your thoughts and feelings are valid, right? And a lot of people don't like using that term, like your feelings are valid, because they feel like it's overplayed. Well, fuck them, they can get over themselves. Why are you mad? Pay attention to it. Think about it, feel it, sit in it. Because oh my God, there's a fly, the first fly of the year. Sorry, I hate that. Because you deserve to know why that is so that you can figure out how to A, not piss yourself off anymore, or B, maybe it's something different. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you think that commercial you saw or heard on the radio, maybe you think because, maybe your YouTube recommended somebody like Dave Ramsey who's talking about God, or whatever. But maybe it's something else. Maybe you're mad because it reminds you of a time that you regret or a thing that you regret. Maybe you're actually mad because you feel like you were bamboozled. Or maybe you're mad because you feel like in hindsight you should have seen all the signs and should have never fallen for it and still did. But something else that I think is important to keep in mind, and this took work. This took work. Like work with an E, right? The people who you feel the maddest at, the people who you feel the most lied to by, are also being lied to. They are also victims of the thing that victimized you. Now, that does not excuse things like abuse, manipulation, gaslighting. I've heard some horror stories about some of the things people went through in the name of the church or God. But I want you to understand the reason that people so vehemently push back on things like atheists and agnostics and questioning the Bible and questioning anything at church is because they've been brainwashed too. Maybe somebody finds out you're an atheist, you're deconstructing or questioning yourself, and they have a poor reaction. I'll just use parents for an example because that's like one of the most common ones. Is they start sending you links to like Bible websites and church websites and things that are like so clearly biased, right? Like articles that are on websites that you can tell like are just Christian based stuff with no real merit. And they start buying you books that you should read from Joel Osteen and things like that. They are genuinely terrified that you are going to burn in hell. They genuinely think that the rapture is coming and you're not going to make it. If it's your parents or your grandparents, they also think, an added little caveat here, that they did something wrong. And if you leave the faith, especially if you're open about it, like those atheist YouTubers who are out here spreading the devil all over the place and brainwashing people into joining their devil cult, that means they failed. And imagine the thoughts going through their head. They failed God. Somehow, because you're a lost lamb, they failed God. And what's that going to look like to the rest of the family, to the church, to, like, say you post about it on social media, to anyone you're friends with, to any mutual friends that you have, to the Facebook friend you've got that was a teacher of yours in elementary school, right? They failed and you're not staying quiet about it. And that's terrifying for them. Terrifying. Now, whether or not you think they have the right to feel that way is a totally different discussion, but that's how it is. They think they did something wrong, right? Hey, what's up? On the Fritz. Good to see you. Thanks for visiting. Hey, Jason. Thanks for stopping by. Jason says it's impossible for heaven to exist if there is a hell. I've never heard that said before, that it's impossible for heaven to exist if there is a hell. I can see what you mean there. Whether it's because in your mind, heaven, like a perfect place, would be where everybody is that you've ever known or that you've ever loved. Some of them are going to hell, right? If hell is real. But just remember that the people, like when you're angry, when you are just like, I don't know if y'all ever have those brain days where you just wake up pissed off and you just know you're gonna be pissed all day no matter what you do about it. Like, maybe it's an ADHD thing, but my brain will do this thing where it'll remind me of something that pissed me off. And it'll remind me for the first time in a decade and a half. And then I'm just stewing. and the rest of the day is shot because I'm thinking about that person or that thing or that argument I should have had a better comeback for, or that time I should have. We all have them. Converting to atheism doesn't take that away, in case anybody ever told you it did. It doesn't, and I apologize. But what you can do is you can honor those feelings by not dismissing them with, pray about it. Pray about it. Why address it? Oh, God. Brian says, or a car insurance company. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. I've got another video. It's called I Won, if you're interested in that saga. You should do what my friend Deep Drinks did, and he said he watched it on like 2 times speed or something. I love that was like the most loving way of somebody telling me that they wanted to get through my video quick. But then I watched it at 2 times speed and I was like, damn, he's right. So now I do that sometimes to people's long videos, but I do it with love. Where was I? I forgot where I was. Oh, where was I? Oh yeah. The difference is either way, you're going to be really mad. And either way, you will have felt that feeling. You can either dismiss it by saying, I just need to pray more. I just need to pray more. It's my fault that I feel this way, obviously, because I'm not praying enough or because I didn't do something right. Or you can explore it and be like, why am I so mad? Why do I feel this way? I get mad so often that I literally have a counselor. And the first day that I went to see her, I said, I'm mad about a lot of shit. I'm mad about so much stuff that sometimes it scares me a little bit. And I want to get it off my chest. So now I visit with her once a week and I just talk a bunch of shit. Now, the good news is a lot of it's like really juicy tea. Like, I love watching her expression as I tell her about like things that have been said and done to me where she's like, no way. And I'm like, girl, yeah, way. That's why I'm so mad. Right. But I've also done a lot of work with why I'm mad and how I can change that and how I can turn the direction, how I can turn it around. I feel very proud of myself for how much work I've done with not being mad anymore and like figuring out what the real reason or purpose was for certain thoughts and ideas, and how to avoid those things and how to know what tricks those things or trips those things, I think I meant to say. And sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you can't avoid the thing that you know makes you mad, but you can have a plan. You can have a game plan. Not everybody gets to move away from the relatives who trigger them. Not everyone gets to avoid the people who set them off. Not everyone gets to move away from their hometown to a new place where they get to start fresh. Those are all privileges. You know, I hate when people talk about things like deconstructing and they're like, just cut your family off. Just don't talk to him anymore. That's a privilege. And a lot of people don't have that. And also that dismisses a lot of the nuance in human relationships that make that difficult. Just because the religious aspect pisses you off, or maybe something about when you were being raised as a teenager pisses you off, does not mean that that is a person that you can cut out of your life, whether it's financially or emotionally or for any other reason. Please don't dismiss your own problems or other people's problems by telling them, oh, just cut the person out, just stop being their friend. If life were that easy, therapists would not have a job, right? Therapists, the goddamn fly, I'm gonna freaking lose it. Sorry, I swear to you, I killed him earlier and he like rose from the dead. But anyway, please post in the comments if you think there should be a name for him or her or they. Who knows? I don't mean to assume. But you're going to be mad. So why not figure out why you're mad? Why not join a community where you can express yourself and be like, guys, I'm mad. I'm mad. Like, oh, says your words bring sanity to the madness. Thank you. Thank you. I never thought I would bring sanity to anything. I'm the same person who shaved my head last year. Anyway, and maybe they weren't talking to me. Maybe Crystal wasn't saying my words, maybe it was somebody else. But I'm going to pretend like it was for me. Allow yourself to be mad. It is a literal thing we talk about in this space, the angry atheist phase. We talk about it all the time. It's when you first deconstruct and it was about me. Thanks, Crystal. When you first deconstruct, we call it the angry atheist phase. One of the first questions I talk to people about, I ask people when they're on my podcast is, so like, are you still in like the angry atheist phase or are you past it? Right? We all go through it. And then here's the hard part. You're probably going to go through a mourning period. And in my experience, and in the experience with the guest I just spoke to in an episode that's going to come out soon, we talked about the mourning period. It is honestly, in my opinion, harder than the angry atheist period, where you're just sad and you're upset and you realize all the people you had been told you were going to see in heaven again one day, you're not going to see them. Whether they're past now or they're passing soon or they'll pass in the future, you're not going to see those people again. Whether it's you thought that there was a heavenly father watching over you and having your back and being there to hear you when you prayed and when you asked for things and when you just needed to feel like you weren't alone, that was never real. That was never true. People talk about how they feel like their community in the church is fake. They feel like they've lost that community. And you have, but you haven't lost community as a whole. You haven't. There are so many communities out here that exist that are willing to let you join. You don't have to be commenting or visible, or you don't have to post atheist memes on Facebook. Anybody who's friends with me on Facebook, I rarely share anything related to atheism at all on my Facebook. Now, on Discord, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Facebook groups for stuff, all the time. All the time. But on my personal Facebook, I'm not going to do to other people the exact thing that I hated so much when like beliefs and stuff were like shoved in my face. I'm not going to be that person. That doesn't mean that anybody you know who shares atheist stuff on Facebook is wrong or is being mean or is a hypocrite. Not at all. People process things in different ways. And one of the things that bothers me the most is when people share that like religious stuff on Facebook and everyone else is like, amen, truer words have never been spoken. Yes, queen. I hate that shit. So I'm not going to be the alternate instigator, right? Like I'm not going to fight fire with fire. My Facebook is for posting pictures of my dog and my parrots and good stuff that happens in life and jokes. But the other pages, that's where I go ham, right? Live stream, that's where I go ham. Not because I'm afraid. It's actually the opposite. It's because I'm not afraid. When I was afraid, when I first began deconstructing, I was terrified of the idea of being an atheist because I thought that made me go to hell, right? I was terrified of the questions that I had that kept popping up and weren't going away when I was 24, 25. That's when I was sharing the Bible verses. That's when I was making sure everybody knew I was going to church. That's when I started doing volunteer stuff with the church. And that's when I started overcompensating because I was afraid. I was afraid. And that's when I overshared. Now that I feel very, very confident in who I am and what I believe and all that stuff, it doesn't need to go on my Facebook. Lord knows I got other platforms for it. If you want it, it's out there. It's just not on my Facebook. Because, like, it just doesn't need to be there. Al says, I'm only incensed when I hear the hate and vitriol against my fellow humans. I can't keep my cool. And that's hard. And it's hard to do. And it's not easy all the time. Some days it's really easy. And other days It's not easy at all, right? Now, I don't have a soul, and I got nothing to lose. So it's easy for me all the time. But some people strive to be like decent human beings, and like keep the peace, and like they have things to lose, like loved ones and families and all that. But because I've always been a debater, I'm luckily at a point in life where people just don't try to really argue with me if they know me. Strangers do all the time. Um, but yeah, that's a great point, Crystal. You said the more you care, the more it hurts, in my opinion. Absolutely, 100%. But man, it hurts. It hurts bad. You feel like you are laying to rest an old friend. You are feeling like you are burying and saying goodbye to somebody that you really didn't get a chance to get any closure with when you go through this mourning period. And I think that mourning period is when it's so important to find community. And I love being that community for people. I love when people email me or DM me on Instagram, and not just atheists and agnostic people. Christians reach out to me all the time too, because they say like, I have those questions and I feel like nobody answers my questions. Thank you. Like I feel like I question things all the time, and I just wish that I could go to my pastor and ask them things, but I feel like I can't. So if you're watching this, please reach out. It doesn't matter when. You could be watching this a year from now. Like today it is 5/24/24. Oh, nice. That's a nice number. But email me, DM me. Please don't try to message me on Discord, because I'm still learning how that works. Like today, I just on my phone, Discord won't tell me that I have messages. It's not until I get online on my computer, which is like once a month, that it shows me I have messages. So, like, Brian, I'm so sorry. I did not see your message until I was literally logging on to post this link onto Discord on my laptop. So I say don't use that one just because I may not see it in time. It may take me like a month to get back to you. You're allowed to like message me all you want on there, but just please don't be mad when it takes me forever to get back to you. But yeah, email me, DM me, contact me. There's like a Growing Up Fundy Facebook page. You can contact me there. You can contact me through my web form on my website. However it is that you feel. If you see me in person, if you're in the Nashville area, come up and chat, talk to me. I can't promise I won't look crazy as fuck because these eyebrows aren't real. Depending on the time of day, if I'm like out walking my dog, I might look like a Victorian ghost child who died of the plague, depending on whether or not I have makeup on. But I'm still nice, I promise. I'm a little prickly, but not all the time. And I mean that. I mean that. So many people that I respond to in these messages say things like, I didn't know you were going to respond. I was just getting this off my chest. Yes. Let me be that person to help you like enter into the community, right? Like if I am like, hey, this person's with me, I am not cool. I'll warn you there. So if you're hoping to get in with cool people, I am not the one. I know that Pragmatic Crystal posted like Deep Drinks' link in there. He's cool. Objectively Dan, any of the people that I work with on Talk Heathen, they're all really cool. I am on Twitter. I rarely check it. I don't even really know why I still have it, to be honest. Like I wasn't one of those people that got so mad about X that I deleted it. I think maybe I just forgot about it. But I do have Twitter. And yeah, so you can message me on Twitter too if you want. But reach out to me. I would love to be community for you. I would love to at least give you my thoughts and opinions, maybe some resources, maybe some links to things, to groups on the internet that you can be part of. I never leave my house, so they're all going to be online. I'm just preparing you. If you're like, but I want an in-person community, I am not the plug for you. I literally leave the house twice a week, every week. And once is to teach a Monday class. And the second one is to go to an every Tuesday thing. And that's it. That's it. I don't even have the Monday thing this week because it's a holiday. Oh, and now on Thursdays, I go to a craft fair to peddle my wares. I make bracelets. But my point is, I can help you join lots of online communities. But if you're looking for real communities, miss me with that shit because I am a hermit. Is leaving the house weird? I don't think so. It's just not my taste. No, I don't judge people for leaving the house, but I do question their sanity probably more than I should. So it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to be really sad and upset. And you're like, gee, thanks for warning me that I'm going to be really fucking depressed. Now what? Great question, hypothetical person. Now what? What do you do? Biomechanic says, I never leave the house either. But you're just a brain. You're not expected to leave the house. You're just a brain, probably in a jar somewhere. That's funny. Only in my boat. Is that a boat? That's a boat, right? Yeah, that's a boat. So, that's a great question. A lot of people think that whenever you have like made it to this point in the process, you're past the angry phase, you're past the sad phase, that you have to like do something with it. You don't. You don't. You don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to start a YouTube channel. You don't have to like put your opinion out there. You don't have to scream it from the that you don't have to earn the badge. You made it. You're here. The minute you started asking questions, you made it. You're part of the group. Right? I teach stand-up comedy classes, and I always tell my students, you're comics now. You're comedians. Because they're like, at what point can I start calling myself a comedian? Right now. You got up on stage, you performed, you're a comedian. Welcome. You're deconstructing, you're part of it. You're welcome. There's no hierarchy, right? There's no badge you have to earn. You know, it's not like Fitbit where they're like, oh, you earned your mountain climber badge or something like that, right? You're here. Welcome. We were all in your spot at once, and there are a million people who are in your spot now, and there are even more people who would give anything to be that far in the process to where you are. So many people would wish that they were at your spot in the process. And I just want you to keep that in mind. So what do? You could be like me and start a podcast or a YouTube channel. You can join Discords, right? Like the atheist community of Austin. They have a massive Discord. I am literally a host for the ACA, and I still have to be sent the direct link for the after show chat because I cannot navigate how to get there myself to save my own life. I can't do it. But man, they have conversations constantly going. They have call-in shows. If you have a question that you want to ask anonymously, call in and ask anonymously. Check out Reddit. Reddit has so many subreddits that you don't even have to comment on. You can just lurk and be involved in to whatever capacity you want. Ex-evangelicals, that's a good one. There's all sorts of ex-Mormon, ex-Muslim. I'm a member of all those. I'm not an ex-Muslim and I'm not an ex-Mormon, but I learn so much from what they talk about. And I get so many ideas for things that I should talk about. And I get so many ideas for things, questions that people are asking all over the place. It's like, oh, I should do an episode about that because clearly people want to know the answer. And now I'm curious. I'm nosy as hell. Now I want to know the answer, right? But you're also allowed to just exist. You don't even have to join any of the internet communities if you don't want to. Maybe you're old. Maybe you're old as fuck and you're like, I am not about to set up a Reddit account. You don't have to. You don't have to. One of my favorite people who is what I would say of the older generation. Do not go telling her I called her old as fuck because I didn't. I was talking about somebody else when I said that. I just realized like the connection there might be. Ivy Collins. Brian introduced me to Ivy Collins, one of my favorite people on this planet. And she is probably one of the oldest atheists I've ever met. Beautiful human being. Lovely, lovely, wonderful human being. Raised her kids in the church. Was religious until she was, I think, in her 40s or 50s. I did an episode with her. It's in my videos, and there's a link to her channel there too. Or you can just, I think you can just type in Ivy Winsong or Ivy Collins into YouTube. She's one of the first that come up when you search her. Lived her whole life, raised multiple kids to adulthood in the church, and is now just the most wonderful, loving, kind, giving, older atheist. She's just awesome. And she's a prime example of somebody who looks back and apologizes for who they used to be, but also focuses on who she's going to be from now on and what she's going to do with what she's learned and the information she's been given and made privy to at this point in her life. Some of the things that I hear the most when I interview people or in the comments of videos or other platforms is, I feel like an idiot. I feel like I've wasted my life doing 40 years in the faith. I feel stupid. What's the point of leaving now, right? Like, ugh, I don't think I could ever forgive myself. Ignore that shit. Ignore that shit. You've done 45 years, you're going to do 46, you're going to do 50, or are you going to cap it at 45? If you had a friend who was like, every time I go home, my partner punches me in the stomach and makes me feel like shit, but we've been together for 20 years, so I feel like an idiot if I give up now. Would you tell them to go home? Would you agree with them? Would you be like, yeah, you should go home and just stew in it? You deserve it. You should have known better. No, you'd be like, leave. Get out of there. Yeah, you've been together for 25 years, but don't let them punch you in the gut for 26. That's how I feel about everything else. Everything else. Well, I want to try this, but I'm too old, or I've been First of all, people are living like longer than ever before, at least in first world nations. So the likelihood that you're going to live to be 100 is a lot more likely now than it was 20 years ago. So do you want that to be 100 years going to church? 100 years living a lie, 100 years bullshitting yourself and those around you? Or 50 years in the church, 50 years not in the church? Sunk cost fallacy. Exactly, Brian Ritchie. Sunk cost fallacy. If anything else were being pitched in that way, you'd be like, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. You're not going to do fun things now because you've spent so much time doing not fun things that you wonder what the point is. Or you're not going to try and find love now because you've been in a loveless relationship for so long that you might as well just stick around. You would call that person crazy. You'd be like, get out of there. So why do we do that with church and faith and religion? And again, that doesn't mean that you have to be loud, proud, vocal, out about it, posting it on Facebook, arguing with people, debating, wearing your atheist shirt to, Thanksgiving and Christmas just to piss people off. You don't have to tell anybody because it is none of their business. People are always really surprised to find out how many people in my personal life don't know that I'm an atheist. I don't hide it. It's not a secret. I've got like 130 episodes of my podcast, I think, something crazy like that, maybe 150. I've got it's my whole brand. It is literally my whole brand. I'm having a non-religious wedding in October. There's going to be none in a church, nothing. But I also am not that person who just brings it up for the sake of bringing it up. I'm not the person who walks into the family gathering and is like, a Bible, what is this? Or my best friend got married in a church very recently and I went and it was fine. I didn't catch on fire and I was very surprised. But other than that, it's I have lots of hats that I wear. I'm an atheist. I'm a podcaster. I'm a parrot owner. I'm a dog owner. I'm a Tennessean, although I don't like that one. I'm going to get the fuck out of here as soon as I can. I'm an iPhone user. I make bracelets on Etsy. I also put bad words on them if you want me to, so feel free to check out my Etsy store, Stacks Bracelet Project, and I'll send you, I sent one out to somebody the other day that said chicken nugget slut on it, so I'll make whatever you want, but that's beside the point. So if you take anything away from what I'm talking about, from this conversation I've been having. Wow, it's been an hour and 15 minutes. Go me. Is that a filibuster? Probably. Come to Canada, Sydney. I've been to Canada and I really had a good time. I really had. Now, it was forever ago. It was ages ago, but yeah. Brian Ritchie says Tennessee, 50% of the reason you don't leave your house. That's actually probably true. I didn't think about that, but that's actually probably really true. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So if you take anything from what I'm saying, just remember this. 1, you owe nobody anything. You don't owe anybody anything. There's no coming out required. There's no badge earning required. There's no proof required. Nothing. If you want to begin to ask questions and change what you believe and look into things and research, do it. You don't need a title. You don't need to know where you're going. You don't need to know if you're going to become an atheist or an agnostic or a different kind of Christian or whatever. You don't have to know any of that. It is nobody's business. Do what you want. Look up the answers to the questions that you have. If you don't want to go to church, don't go. But if you don't want to call yourself an atheist, don't. You owe nobody anything except yourself. And that's to be honest to yourself. Now, if you don't have the answer to that question, like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't know. That's honesty. Honesty includes having, oh, Crystal, you're in South Louisiana? R.I.P. I am so sorry. Woof. I'm so sorry. Where is it going? Oh, yeah. You don't have to pledge to anything or be performative or even tell anybody if you're deconstructing. You are allowed to do whatever you want, to join all the YouTube channels, all the Reddit pages, or none of them. And that is perfectly fine. You don't have to comment. You don't have to start anything. You don't have to do a podcast. You don't have to this. Blah, blah, blah. Nope. Welcome. You're part of the community. It's great to have you. You don't have to come out. You don't have to make any announcements. If people ask you questions, you don't have to answer them. That's another thing is people always are, you're always, when you're asked a question, when you're confronted with a question, our human nature is to go, oh, I got to defend myself. I got to do a good enough job to defend myself. Or if like, say you're a part of a community like this one, I got to make the community look good. No, you don't. Tell that person to mind their own goddamn business. I'll do an entire different stream on debate tactics and like things that people will try to tell you aren't allowed in debate and I call bullshit. One of them is you don't got to answer questions. Just because somebody asks you something, they're not owed an answer. Fuck out of here with that. Now, if you're the one going around confronting people and demanding answers, then you should have to stand for what it is you said. Like, if you put it out there first, you can't be mad at people for asking about it. If you're like, I'm an atheist, and then somebody's like, why? You can't be like, I don't owe you an answer to that, right? Which you don't owe them, but it's a good idea to stand for what you say, right? But if you're just like at family Thanksgiving and somebody's like, so I hear you ain't a Christian no more. What's that about? Fuck them. Like, not literally, but like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't owe them anything. You don't owe anybody an answer to anything. They can mind their own business. I'm not going to tell them any of like my personal business. So why would I need to defend myself against that? Right? Wouldn't they like to know? They don't get to spill the tea. I get to spill my tea. Right? So keep that in mind. Something else to keep in mind is, say, for example, you do become comfortable identifying as an atheist or an agnostic. Once again, you don't owe anybody anything. That does not mean you have to be ready to debate. That does not mean you have to be ready to join a call-in show. That does not mean that you have to be active in communities and all these things. You can be whatever you want. You can be quiet in your house reading a book. Or you can be all over Reddit, right? Or you can become the sickest mod on the internet like Pragmatic Crystal. This community would be nowhere without her. She is thebomb.com. And also everywhere all at once. Like, okay, if anyone is omnipotent and omniscient, it's Pragmatic Crystal. It's not God, it's Pragmatic Crystal. I've never seen somebody in so many spots at once. I like to picture Crystal, I like to picture you, and I don't know what you look like, but I like to picture what I think you look like surrounded by like screens with like different YouTube channels like on every screen and just like moderating all of them, just being like, I like to imagine that. Don't ruin my reality if that's not what it is. You don't owe anybody anything. Just because they ask you a question does not mean you have to answer that question. Tell them to fuck off and mind their business. You don't have to argue for anything. You don't owe the community anything. You can be whoever you want to be, along with being an atheist or a deconstructing or agnostic or whatever, or spiritual and non-religious. And there's nothing you got to do for the community. Nothing. Right? I am a face on multiple channels. So there are things that I need to do for the community, right? But I signed up for that. Right? I am addicted to being the center of attention. And that, I think, comes from being like a drama kid with ADHD. I don't know. Still working on exploring that aspect of myself. But you don't have to do that. In fact, I envy people who don't feel like they have to be doing stuff all over the internet all the time. There's so many days where I'm like, I wish I were not addicted to Facebook. But I am, and that's okay. Probably not. I should probably tell my counselor about that too. But the minute you start asking questions, you're part of the team. You're part of the club, if you want to be. What club is that? Doesn't matter. You don't need, oh my God, you're addicted to coffee. I'm also addicted to coffee. I am. That's 100% accurate. You get to decide everything for yourself from here on out. Do you want a label? Fine. What is it? Do you want to start a channel or a podcast or blog? Great. But you don't have to. You don't owe anybody anything, and that includes us. That includes me. That includes your favorite YouTuber. That includes your heroes that you look up to. That includes nobody is entitled to your business. They're not. They're not. And one of the things that makes me a little bit crazy is when people like gatekeep stuff. There's no gate. There is no gate. I've been in this house this whole time. There's no gate in this house. There's definitely not heavenly gates either, but that's, neither here nor there. Biomechanics says, once you start asking questions, then that's the end of religious belief. It does not hold up well to scrutiny. That's kind of what at the very beginning, I kind of got at that for a second, where it's like, you could deconstruct and do a different form of religion, but the longer you do it, the more likely I doubt that is the outcome. Yeah, it can't be unseen, right? Once you learned it, you can't unlearn it, you can't unsee it, you can't unknow it, unless you're willing to admit to yourself that you are being willfully ignorant and you are doing that to yourself. I know lots of people who have seen what they need to see and heard what they needed to hear, but decided that the version of themselves they were before they knew that was best for them, and so now they're just lying to themselves every day, and that just makes me sad. You're part of the club. You don't have to earn any badges. You don't have to have a title. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to represent the community in any way. I would appreciate it if you wouldn't disrepresent the community. Like, I would appreciate it if you didn't go, I'm an atheist, and then just like sucker punch people in public. That is, I don't like that. Please don't do bad stuff in the name of atheism. You don't have to do anything good or public in the name of atheism, but also like don't do bad stuff, because we never like hearing those, oh, and this person was a devil worshiper, when they weren't, first of all, but also just, it'd be nice if you didn't open that can of worms. But get to know who you are now. You're free. Once you actually allow yourself to ask yourself those questions, you've unlocked something that I think, even though it doesn't feel like it right now, is a awesome privilege and an adventure And I am so excited for you. Genuinely, I am so excited for you to figure out who you're going to be. I think often, often, and I get really emotional when I think about who I would be if I had not deconstructed. I think all the time about what if I hadn't met the one person or been in the one scenario or the whatever it was that really kickstarted it. If I had just stayed safe, I would have missed out on so much. You know, people worry that if you don't have God or if you don't have religion, you don't have anything to live for. I have never had more to live for than I do now. I have never had more joy and more friends and more genuine relationships and more, I think, humor, and more love and more, um, compassion than I think I've ever had. I've never felt more compassionate than I have since I left the church. And I talk to other atheists about this all the time. We feel like we've become so much nicer, kinder, and like better people since deconstructing because we've allowed ourselves to get to know people and to truly love people um without having like a prize at the end, without being worried about like heaven points or God or whatever. When you're being nice and caring about people for the sake of being nice and caring about people, that feels so much better. It feels so much better. Ugh. I've never met nicer people than since I've joined the godless community. And funny. They're also funny people. Now, that being said, I know lots of wonderful people who are also Christian, but I know that these people would be wonderful regardless of the church. The church is not what makes them wonderful. They're good people with good morals and ethics, and they love other people and they care about other people. And the church did not give them that. They would be the same person. Um, and then, of course, well, where do your morals come from if you're not a Christian? How come you don't steal or lie or pillage or murder if you're not worried about making it to heaven? Um, my question for people whenever they ask me that is, if being a Christian is the only reason you're not a murdering rapist, please stay Christian. Do us all a favor and please stay religious if that's the only reason you're not. I'm not doing that stuff because I don't want to do that stuff, and also because it's bad for the clan. It's never been good for the village to murder people. Like, that's never been a good thing to do. If you murder people, you got less hunters, you got less gatherers, you got less people to help care for the babies, you got less people contributing to taxes and infrastructure. And also, I just don't want to kill people. Did you not hear me when I say I don't leave the house? Murdering people involves leaving the house unless you're like a sniper. That comment is probably going to come back to haunt me at some point. That soundbite. But who cares? Who cares what people ask you? Who cares what people think? Who cares what grandma thinks? Who cares what mom thinks? Who cares what dad thinks? Who cares what anybody thinks? You're free. You can do whatever you want. You can look up whatever you want, except the thing we talked about in the beginning that'll get you sent to jail. Don't do that. Everything that everybody's told you not to question, question it. You're free. Do it. Find out what all that shit's about. And then decide for yourself. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? Are you surprised? Are you not surprised? And I am so excited for you to explore that aspect of yourself and to go down that rabbit hole. I'm so excited. And if you need help, message me, reach out. I would love to point you in the right direction. I would love to just chit chat, just talk to you, just find out, pick your brain for a little bit. And maybe like introduce you to some communities that you can just kind of lurk in and hang out in until you figure out what it is you want or where it is you're going, or who it is you want to be. But at the end of the day, just like be open to learning and don't be embarrassed that you used to be somebody that you're not anymore. Don't be embarrassed, or don't be so embarrassed that you're afraid to like move forward, or that you don't think you deserve to move forward. I am very embarrassed about who I used to be, but I openly talk about it all the time. I openly use who I used to be as a litmus test for who I don't want to be anymore. You don't have to do that, but it's okay to be embarrassed. But don't be so embarrassed that you fall into that sunk cost fallacy. Don't be so embarrassed that you feel like you've wasted your time or your life in the wrong place, and that you're dumb or you're stupid or you're whatever, or that you got brainwashed. Just, you're free now. Maybe you spent 20 years, but at least you didn't spend 21. Maybe you spent 15, but you didn't spend 16. And that's what matters. None of this other bullshit matters. Except my channel. Like, subscribe, hit the little bell so you get a notification whenever I post stuff. You can watch all my monetized content that you want. I would love it. My bills would love it. But you don't have to, and that's perfectly okay. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox. I've been talking for like 6 hours straight, and my jaw is so sore. Like, I can literally feel my jaw like locking up, and I'm going hoarse. So I'm gonna hop off here. Thank you for chilling with me and watching this unhinged rant. If you know anybody who needs to hear this, please send them this link, because I would love to hear their thoughts. I would love for them to just, I don't know, give themselves permission to lurk. And maybe they'll hear something in this chat, in this conversation, that they want to look more into. Maybe they'll reach out to me. Maybe they'll feel like they're not so alone in exploring these questions. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. It's not the devil weeding his way into your brain. And welcome to the community. We love having you here. We love seeing you here. You don't got to do nothing to earn your keep. It's totally fine. But if you feel like it, let us know. I'd love to subscribe to your channel or check out your Twitter, or join. Gregory says, hit the thumbs up button. It's free for the remainder of this stream. Yes, I made it free. Just for you. Just for you. But until then, that's all I got. I should probably return some of these phone calls. People think I'm dying, because Lord knows I love to talk. So when I don't pick up the phone, they're like, what the... But again, if you're watching this, message me, email me, comment, whatever. Hit me up on Instagram. Smash that like button. Yeah, I've always wanted to say it. Smash the like button. Thank you so much, Pragmatic Crystal, for being the world's best mod. Thanks for Brian Ritchie for always hanging out in the chat and joining my live streams and being so supportive and showing me how to use Discord by chatting with him. I've learned more about Discord than I've learned trying to learn about Discord. Thanks to everybody who's been sitting here in the chat. Thanks to, I love this comment. Devil in Disguise says, I appreciate that lurkers are welcome here. This was so good. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Devlin. I really appreciate you as well. Everybody who's here, I've seen you chatting, but if you weren't chatting, because I've seen the numbers on the live stream too, and it's a lot bigger than the numbers who've been commenting, you're the person I'm talking to. You're the person I'm talking to. Welcome. You're welcome to lurk. You're welcome to hang out here. I like to think there's good content. According to some of the commenters, I'm annoying and they don't like my finger snapping, but get off my lawn if that's the case. Anyway, bye. See you guys later. Bye. Have a great weekend.